Everyone should have a crowd like this. My name is Justin Mayer, and I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. But for the last few years, I have spent the nicer months in the Italian Alps in the province of Trento, where Luca Fedrizzi, one of the PyCon organizers, he and I have been working on this project called Fortressa. Is the app store for open source. If you want to see a demo, please come and find me or Luca, and we'll show you what it's all about. In my spare time, I maintain some open source projects such as Pelican, Virtual Fish, Autopub, and probably too many others. As soon as I figure out how to advance, cool. So today I want to talk about terminals and the software that we run on them. If you're anything like me, you spend a lot of time there. And the tools that we have available on terminals keep getting better and better. It seems like every day I find 2 or 3 new ones that I wish I had time to dig into. So I'm going to tell you about some of the ones that I find the most helpful and that I use pretty frequently. There are quite a few, and there's not much time, so I'm going to go a little fast. Don't feel like you need to take photos of the screen. Come on, it's not really going to come out anyway. And B, I will make sure the slides are available so you don't have to catch everything. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at jmayer, and you'll see when the slides are posted, and I will, so I'll get them to you. So I want to talk first about dotfiles. Originally, I created some bash script to symlink a bunch of files in my dotfile repo into the home folder. And that worked pretty well for a while. I made it, so I could run it over and over again, and it would just work and not break anything and update things that changed. But it didn't really do the things that I wanted it to do. So after a while, I switched to Ansible. If you've ever used Ansible, it's a tool for automating configuration management. So you can say, this is the state I want, and it will create that state. And you can do very fancy things with it. Managing your dot files is probably one of the least fancy things you can do with Ansible. But I did use that for a while and even did some tweaking of my Mac setup. If you want, you can see what I did there. This is cool. There we go. Still here? Awesome. And but I found a better tool for this more recently. And it's called Chezmoi. If my French is terrible, I think that's how you pronounce that. It's a really interesting tool for managing your dot files. It does a lot of things, like things that I don't even use yet because it's a very powerful tool. My first impression, maybe it's a little over-engineered, and then I thought, well, actually some of these features are really, really useful and interesting. So I'm currently in the process of converting all of my Ansible configuration that's dotfile specific over to Chezmoi. And I'll share that publicly as soon as I have it done. It's a really interesting tool. I highly recommend that you check it out. I want to talk a little bit about fish. I know we have a few fish fans in the room. Yes, yes. How many people here use fish? Come on, I know you all do. Yes. Oh, okay. You all just made my whole day. I love it when I have some fish fans in the room. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of fish evangelism. Here's why you should use it. You can go check it out for yourself. I will say that some people feel like, oh, it's not POSIX compatible, it doesn't do bash stuff. Yeah, that is a feature, people, not a bug, a feature. And so it is why we love it. And you will find, I think, if you try it, that you'll get used to it, and it's pretty cool. There's a person named Brett Terpstra, and this person does a lot of really interesting automation. I wish I could sit in a room with this guy for a week and just learn everything that he does. This person recently switched to Fish and has rewritten all of these really cool things in Fish. I even have not had time to dig through all of it, but there's some really great stuff in there, and I look forward to finding the time to dig through it and see it. Some people use Poetry. I use Poetry. But they also use the automatic virtual environment management part of Poetry, which I don't use. I'm old school, and I just prefer to manage my virtual environments myself. I maintain a project called Virtual Fish, which makes it easy to manage virtual environments. If I have time and I can get this set up to work, I'll show you at least one thing that I do with it that I think is kind of neat. I already have a fish prompt that I like, and I just don't have time to change it. But someday I'm going to find enough time to change it. And when I do, I'm going to use Starship, which is a very cool Rust-based prompt. And it works on every shell, even if you don't use fish. I saw the list of shells that it supports. It's rather, rather long, every one I've ever heard of. So very cool. Highly recommend you check it out. OK, quick survey. How many of you use Homebrew to install Python? No one? No one in this room uses Homebrew to install Python? OK, was that one? OK, got it. PyEnv? OK, a few there. OK, cool. Nix? OK, great. Yes, Nate's. I knew I would get at least one. OK, another one. Cool. ASDF. All right, yes. Of course, you know what I'm going to talk about now. I wrote a post last year called Homebrew Python is Not For You. I describe in some detail as to the terrible ways that Homebrew can ruin your day when you use Homebrew Python. They build Python for itself. It's for the Homebrew project. It's really not for you to use. You can, but it will eventually make you sad. And I recommend instead using something else. I use ASDF. It's just like PyEnv, except PyEnv plus every other language you ever heard of. So you can use it to install Node, NPM, Ruby stuff, Golang, Rust, things that I don't need to do. But when I need to, I will have the right tool to do it. Anyone use Rich? Yes, OK. Rich is a very cool program, library for doing cool stuff in terminals, adding colors. You can add progress bars. I'm going to show you a little interesting snippet. So the file location and name is totally arbitrary. This is just where I keep it and what I named it, but totally arbitrary. The file contents we have here is, we're going to import print, pretty, inspect, and traceback from Rich. And we're going to install the traceback support. And we're going to print a little message that says, like, hey, the Rich library was installed, so just so you know, it's available to you. And if it's not installed, we do nothing. And if you then create an environment variable, and you have this, the Python startup is that part actually needs to be named that, whatever path you chose. And then I would now show you normally what you can do with it, and hopefully we will get to that. The switching back and forth with this thing is not going to work, so hopefully we'll come back to that one. OK, that's that. There are also some cool things you can do with Rich and logging. Some folks wrote some interesting articles about how you can do that, and it really does improve the output of your logging. If you're going to have to look at a big stream, a big wall of logs, have it look nice, have it be readable. There's another project called PT Python. It's much like IPython and its ilk, and this is again something that's easier to show than to tell, but it adds some really nice auto-completion and some other niceties. For example, if you are in a Django project, it will automatically just load all of a whole bunch of models that are Django specific that you would normally have to load yourself. Lots of niceties that I think can really improve your terminal experience. There's an entire category of modern replacements for older tools, and they're often written in more recent languages such as Rust. I'm going to go through a couple of those in that category. If you've ever used grep or tools for searching, I think you'll find that ripgrep is a nice alternative to those tools. I have it set up both in Vim and also set up in my terminal session as well for really fast, easy searching. Hopefully we'll explore that in a moment. Xoxide is a modern replacement for Z. I don't know if you've ever used this, but there's several shell tools called Z or something like it where you type Z and then a name of something. It could be a project that you use often. It could be a directory that you want to go to. But essentially, it records every time you change your directory and kind of creates a little mental map of all of the things you normally switch to. And then you can just type Z Pelican or Z my project, and it will jump to that directory, which is really handy. ripgrep all is an extension of ripgrep. It adds search in PDFs, ebooks, Office documents, zip files, gzipped, tarballs, lots of other different things that normally you'd have to work a little bit harder to search. So it makes it easier to kind of dig into and search some of the files that you might have lying around. I don't know if you've ever used FZF, but this is one of these tools that I've seen. Nice. It's one of these tools that that I had seen people mention over and over again, but I never really could quite wrap my head around the ways in which I could make it helpful for me. And I found a way that I really like. It's a bit of a wall of text, and this is a fish version of a bash snippet that's in the README for ripgrep all, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And essentially, it combines ripgrep all and FZF, and I can just type FIF for, say, find in folders or find in files, whatever you want it to be. I can type FIF and then a string, a name of something I want to find, and it'll just do this recursive search, pull up this nice little FZF selection thing right in the terminal. Again, hopefully we'll get to it, but it's very cool. Highly recommend it. Some other ones that I haven't spent too much time with, but are, again, common replacements for, for tools that you may use. There's FD for find, SD for sed, EXA for ls. I believe all of these are written in Rust. And I think that, you should give them a try and see if they work better for you than the versions that were written in 1972. I want to switch gears for a moment, and sorry this is kind of small, but there's some things that I do with Git that could be common knowledge, and maybe you do all this stuff every day, but I find useful. The first thing I wanted to highlight is that the top couple lines, you can see that they look like variables, and that's Chezmoi. Those are Chezmoi variables. So this way, if I want to use a different name or a different email address for a different project or a different environment, I can configure those things, and Chezmoi will change those variables. And you can do that throughout any dot file in your whole repository. You can do all kinds of interesting things with variables. I have aliases for remotes, so I can just type git remotes. Branches, I can type git branches. Because Git can be a little opaque, right? Like the Git porcelain is pretty not great out of the box, so I have a few things to make it a little bit less rough. Or I can say, show me the current branch, show me the current ID, show me a Git log, but with each line, with each commit on one single line with less noise. So I can see a whole bunch of things on one screen. And the ever favorite, Git unstage, because I can never remember how to unstage things in Git, so I just make it easy on myself. Delta is another useful tool. It is a syntax highlighting pager for output for tools like Git, diff, and grep. You can, hopefully we'll come back to that one. Gitty is another useful tool. You have to set an environment variable pointing to a GitHub token that you can create with minimal privileges, and then you can type things like Gitty all projects namespace, put in the org for your if maybe it's just your name, or maybe you have an org, and then you put in the provider, say GitHub, and it'll show you a list of projects in that organization along with the last releases, which is useful because for me, it ends up being a wall of shame, because it's like, oh, let's see here. I haven't done a release in that project in 2 years. Cool, all right, good job. But it's useful. Okay. Here's a couple more useful Git things. One is, the first one uses a tool that GitHub offers. GitHub provides a CLI that you invoke with GH, and you can type git open and use this, and it will pull it open. I'm sure there's a similar built-in command for for GH itself. The squash one is a bit complicated. Hopefully I'll get to show you that in a second. And same in the bottom ones are also related to that. But I'm one of these people that prefers to have Git histories a little bit clean. If I do a fix up commit, I don't need to see more fixes on the thing that I broke and I thought was fixed, but it's not actually fixed. So this is fixed part 32. I like to kind of just squash those into the thing that was supposed to be right from the get-go. And so there's some workflow that I use to make that a little bit easier. All right, so now the tricky part, which is going back to all the things that I wanted to show you and see if I can remember what things they were. So, okay, no, we did that one. No, not that one. Okay. So let's try this one. Hold on 1 second. Oh, that's right. The screen's over there. That's the part that was going to be complicated about this. Okay, so, all right, I think I can manage this. This is going to be comedy.
If it's really bad, you can switch to Grow and screen preferences. Maybe it's better.
That's probably the way to do it. I was kind of hoping to be able to refer to the slides at the same time, but yeah, that's not going to happen, is it? Right. Display settings. And somewhere in here there's mirroring. Use as mirror.
Nice.
Okay. Well, I guess I can just kind of switch back like this. So one of the things that you can do, for example, is, let's see, what was I? I think I was going to do that one. Okay. So we're in a Python session, except because we didn't see the little, rich is enabled part, that means that that's not going to work. So let's try. All right, now, there we go. Now we see the rich is enabled part, and we're going to say from Pelican generators, import generator, and then we can do things like this. We can say inspect generator, and we can see this fancy description of the generator. We can see some of the different parameters. You can do all kinds of other fancy things by running inspect to see all the things you can do, but we're going to try another one, which is methods equals true, and then we can see a long list of the class methods. So that's one of the cool things that I like about this setup, and one of the other ones is the, let's see here, let's say we want to do print foo. Guess what, foo's not defined, so we get a traceback. And if you're going to look at a traceback, isn't that a nicer traceback to look at? It makes me happy. There's colors, little lines, decorate your space, make it look nice. So, okay. So we covered that. Okay, so that's right. We were going to talk a little bit about PT Python. And then, maybe we'll do that. Okay. So here, now we're in, that doesn't look like, is it? Okay, yeah. So now we can see things like, we get these really nice auto completions. We can, let's see here. We can autocomplete. And there we go. And we can, this time we're going to inspect a function called slugify. And the autocomplete is really nice. So that's one of the other things that I really like about PT Python. Oh yeah, that's right. And then the other one I was going to show you is find in files. So let's see here. let's go to, all right, so I'm going to search for the word tailwind. So this is this combination of that find in files script that I had that ties to rip all and FZF to allow me to go through all the different instances of the word tailwind that appears in this project. And so if I'm in a terminal session and I want to find something quickly, this is a really great way for me to find it. If I go ahead and hit return, it'll just open it in my default editor, which is a handy feature. Okay, and let's see. Okay, and then there was, yes, where is, okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take here's Git LG, which is my tool to see. This would normally just be all on, each one would be on one line, but of course I've made this big enough so everyone could read it, so it doesn't really look like it. But normally these would all be on one line. And so the last commit was some change that I made to a README, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a change to that. I'm going to say, hi, PyCon Italia, okay? And then we're going to save it, and then I'm going to add it, and then I'm going to commit it. But it was a mistake. I meant to do it in the first one. I don't want it just to have another noisy commit in there. So I'm going to use something called Git Commit Fix Up. And the syntax is a little weird, and I can never remember it. So I just create an alias for GCF, Git Commit Fix Up. And then that way it just auto-completes the whole rest of this for me. And then the argument you want to give it is the commit, some word in the commit that you want to fix. In this case, I use the word readme in this particular commit. And so I'm going to do that. And if I were to do like a rebase, like normally this is what you could do to like make things look nice, you'll notice it automatically did everything correctly. It's picking the commit, that's the one I want to keep. It's marked the one that I want to, the fix up commit as fix up. And I could just save this file and it would do exactly what I want it to do. But instead, I'm going to use the nice tool or the alias that I created called Git Squash. So I don't have to remember to do this. I don't have to go into let's Git rebase. Like how many commits back was it? How many do I need to include in this rebase? I can just type Git Squash and it's done. And if I now type Git log, we'll see that we have a nice clean commit where everything is all squished together the way it should be. So yeah, I'm glad that that worked, and I was able to give you a little tour of those things. These are just some of the tools that I use. I would love to hear about some of the tools that you use, because Lord knows I don't have enough time to learn about all of them. So like I said, if you follow me on Twitter, I will let you know when all the slides are available, because I know that was a lot to cover in a brief amount of time. Thanks a lot for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. You're actually a little ahead of schedule, so we'll have more time for questions. Any more questions from the floor regarding this? And what kind of, how much you feel you're more empowered by customizing your shell experience this way?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, part of it, is certainly, window dressing, right? Like, it's like we do things in our home to make it look nice, right? Like it doesn't add any functionality, for me to take a piece of art and hang it on the wall. But it makes me happy when I come in the room. So part of it is certainly just things that make me smile. Like when I log into servers, I will see like this this little animation that appears. Not really an animation, but let's see here, just to give you an example. Yeah, it'll come up in a second, but will it? Yeah, it's great. We'll see. But just focusing, for example, on those little Git things that I do. I mean, those do save me a lot of time. Like I don't have to go and remember some arcane syntax. Like those things are just available to me, and they really add up. And it isn't just about saving time. It's also about saving frustration, because there are times where I will spend more time creating some little or something than I actually get value out of it. But if reduces my level of frustration, then I will be more productive in what I'm actually trying to do.
So I want to be clear. I'm not asking this in a confrontational way, but
I would be disappointed
but
otherwise.
no, there's no but. I'm asking because I'm waffling myself, so I just want to hear your take. Why would you prefer PyPython over IPython? Because I'm using both too, and I cannot decide.
Yeah, you know, I honestly I don't have like a strong sense of why one of them is better than the other. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think. Yeah, exactly. It was one of these things where I've tried them both. They both seem interesting. I'm still trying to figure out which one I should end up using. So if you figure it out, let me know.
The word is waffling.
Waffling, got it. Okay, so I'll just like set it to choose one automatically, randomly on every invocation, and then someday I'll be like, yeah, I guess now I actually have an opinion on this. What's that?
Your next shell trick.
Yeah.
That'll be your next shell trick, your next talk. How
That's
to
right.
randomly choose between two commands to A/B test your own happiness in your shell.
How to drive your productivity through the floor by randomizing your shell environment. Yeah, I like this. This is good. This is good. No, actually, I think that I'm just going to do this to Hinex's machine when he walks to go to the bathroom. It's like, what is going on here?
One of the problems I've had with trying to not learn, but kind of get the muscle memory to use some of these tools like Exa is I've set up aliases for, say, ls to Exa. Have you done that yourself? Have you an opinion about whether that's a good way or a bad way to switch from one tool to another?
Yeah, I generally don't like to alias and sort of shadow other built-ins because there's times where I might want to use them and then I have to kind of work a little harder to use the original one. So if I'm going to do that, I will tend to just use Exa, for example, or I'll give it some other alias. Like Fish is great in that you can create not just aliases, but also abbreviations. An abbreviation is where you just type a couple letters, and as soon as you hit space, it just expands into whatever you want it to do. And that way, it's not really an alias, and you get the full actual command in your history, even if it's 3 lines long. So like for Exa, there was a while where I used E as I would just type E space, and then I was off to the races. So that's how I do it usually.
Any more question? Okay, thank you a lot, Justin.
Thank you.